Just another brick in. Shut the fuck up, you clowns.
You know how every time I see one of these anywhere, I have a meltdown.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brain Blaze. This one today, Greatest Missed Opportunities. Thank you, Dave, for writing this script. I'm going to read it. I've never read it before. Let's just jump in, shall we? I'm getting over a cold. It'll be fine. I feel like every Brain Blaze is like, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm just getting over a sickness. It's winter and the kids, they go to school. It's like fucking Porton Down in there. Jesus Christ.
Oh my god, I have a disease, alright? I need help.
You'd be hard pushed to find somebody who, when looking back through life, cannot think of at least one example of a missed or wasted opportunity. Oh my god, I just feel like life is this. I'm always like, oh my god, I'm missing this opportunity because I'm busy with shit. I'm always like working on stuff and I'm like, oh, but I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be... It's like, for fuck's sake, Whistle, come on. And you've got like a million things to do and it's like, why is it like this? Just me? For myself, that opportunity involves Bitcoin. Shortly after the release of the cryptocurrency, I bought 5 Bitcoins for around $10 each. If you were buying them at $10 each, that wasn't around the time of the release of Bitcoins, because they were worth fractions and fractions of maybe even cents back in the day, right? When people were first mining those things. If you're buying at $10 each, then you're late to the game. At some point during 2013, I sold those coins for approximately $250 each. Honestly, Dave, I'd have done the same thing. I'd be like... That's a huge return on investment. I'll take it. No. Whilst this is a fairly good percentage return for any investment, had I held on to them until today, the combined worth would be about £114,550. Holy shit. As I'm sure you all agree, this return would have been considerably better. Yes, but you know how it is. Be happy with what you got. Take that £250. That's great. With that sort of money, I could buy a small house in the north of England. It's grim up north. Really small. I mean, there is like this. It's just a joke in the UK. I don't really think it's grim up north. I wouldn't know because I've never been. With that sort of money, I could buy a small house in the north of England, a small flat in the south of England, or rent a small cardboard box for 6 months in the centre of London. It's true. London's so expensive. I used to live there in a tiny room, in a tiny flat that I shared with 6 other people. I don't even remember how much it was, but it was pricey. As annoying as this financial oversight would turn out to be, there are many people and companies out there who have it much, much worse. In today's episode, we'll be taking a look at some of those people and the life-changing opportunities on which they failed to capitalize. Number 5, Ronald Wayne. On the 1st of April 1976, 2 college dropouts approached Ronald Wayne, an electronics engineer who specialized, is this the guy who sold his shares in Apple? I have a feeling it is. And these 2 guys are Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, right? Steve Wozniak? They're both called Steve. That's odd.
Steve.
And asked him whether he might be interested in joining their startup company. Wayne immediately agreed to their proposal and drew up a contract that split the ownership of this new company 3 ways. 10% would go to him, and 45% would go to each of the and 45% would go to each of the other co-founders. Wait, you've drawn up this contract and you've done it way not in your favor. 12 days after signing this contract, Wayne decided that the business was too risky and he sold his stake to the other 2 founders for $1,500. So, what was the name of this company? I already know. It's Apple, isn't it, Dave? It's Apple.
Hey, Apple. Hey, Apple. Hey, Apple.
Well, the 2 individuals went by the names of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and the company in question was, of course, Apple Computer, given that Apple is, at the time of writing, worth $2.52 trillion. Oh, shit. This will make you one of the wealthiest people in the world. Selling his 10% for $1,500 was, in hindsight, slightly foolish. Although you might find it difficult to believe, Wayne seems to harbour few regrets about his decision. He believes that, given the information he had at the time, the choice he made was sensible. Quote, Jobs and Woz didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I had a house, I had a car, I had a checking account. When the partnership agreement was drawn out, Jobs went out and did exactly what he was supposed to do. He got a contract with a place called the Byte Shop to sell them a certain number of computers. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, and he borrowed $15,000 for the materials necessary to fill the order. Perfectly appropriate. The only problem was, as I heard, the Byte Shop had a terrible reputation for not paying their bills. If this thing blew up, how's that $15,000 going to get repaid? Do they, Jobs and Wozniak, have the money? No. Was I reachable? Yes. Oh, I think this is like the thing. People are often like, oh my God, I wasted this. I didn't do that. It's like, yeah, but you made the best decision with the information that you had at the time. This guy's just got a logical brain and I like it. He has also stated in several interviews that he is much happier the way life turned out, believing that if he had been involved with Apple from the beginning, he may have made more money, but he'd certainly have had less life. Good for you. I like this guy. This is such a fucking strong take.
But you can't do this to me.
I started this company. You know how much I sacrificed?
Even so, if he had just managed to hold on to just 1% of the company, he would now have approximately $25.2 billion. I personally find it difficult to believe that he does not regret this at all. I don't find it that difficult to believe. I think he's probably he's just a happy person. He's like a happy life. And is $25.4 billion going to make you more happy?
Sure.
I'm not so sure. I don't know. Do people on private jets smile more? Maybe. Probably not. Number 4. Disney's failure to acquire the rights to Harry Potter. These days, that grubby little mouse, allegedly, seems to have his fingers in almost every pie, seeing as Disney now own everything from Marvel to the History Channel. You can be forgiven for wondering why they've not absorbed one of the most popular franchises of all time. Well, the truth is they have actually attempted to do just that. Although the rights to the Harry Potter franchise were purchased by Warner Brothers in 2004, J.K. Rowling signed a letter of intent with Disney, which would have allowed them to create a Harry Potter-themed section within the Magic Kingdom at Disney World. A letter of intent is just a letter of intent, though. Is that actually legally enforceable? Because I always found it just a bit pointless. It's like, no, I intend to do that. We can do that if everything in negotiations works out perfectly and there's absolutely no reason to not do this at all. It's just a bit bizarre. Disney would ultimately pull out of this agreement, claiming that Rowling was demanding too much creative input and that Warner Brothers were placing too many restrictions on the project. Whether or not this were the actual reasons for Disney withdrawing from the project is a matter of some contention. However, according to theme park historian Jim Hill, sounds like honestly a pretty cool job, to be honest, Jim. There were other reasons behind the decision. Hill says that when Disney pitched their ideas for the project to Rowling, she was less than impressed. It's alleged that Disney only planned to build 2 small attractions, 1 ride and a sort of animatronic petting zoo, along with a vaguely Harry Potter-themed quick-service eatery. Honestly, that sounds a bit doesn't it? It sounds like more it belongs in Blackpool rather than in Disneyland, doesn't it? Rowling wasn't having any of that, believing that her creation deserved much more real estate and much more financial investment. And as knobby as that sounds, she's absolutely right. In the end, the theme park rides were sold to Universal, who quickly set about building something much more impressive than Disney had ever been prepared to commit to. It was 2004. Harry Potter was already a big deal. Disney, you should have been like, yeah, we'll build a second Disney for Harry Potter. And it's not going to not work out for you. Tom Williams, chairman and CEO of Universal, released a statement saying, "We're going to devote more time, more money, more expertise, and more executive talent from throughout our entire organization and creative team, as well as from Warner Brothers, our partners, to ensure that this entire environment is second to none." So, what did this actually cost Disney in real terms? Oh boy, it's going to be a lot. Well, quite a lot. When the Harry Potter exhibition opened at Universal Island of Adventure in 2010, the park was receiving approximately 6 million visitors per year. 2 years later, due entirely to Harry Potter, that number had risen to just over 9 million. That's a 50% increase just because of one property.
A great opportunity squandered? Absolutely. Will I get over it? No.
Islands of Adventure had gone from a place that people holidaying in Disney World might visit during their trip to a place that people were going instead. So not only is that 3 more million people visiting their park, that's 3 million other people who are probably not going to their competitor, which is insane. This incredible success led to the only year-on-year drop in visitor numbers that Disney World ever experienced. Dave, did you just forget about COVID? It's impossible to know just how much revenue Disney lost because they failed to secure the Harry Potter franchise, but given that some estimates put the amount that Universal has made through butterbeer sales alone at more than $350 million, it's safe to say that it's a considerable chunk of change. Butterbeer was like non-alcoholic, right? Because they were always drinking that shit. Surprisingly, I know everyone thinks that I just hate fantasy. I really enjoyed Harry. I've not seen the movies. I think I've seen like a couple of the movies, but I've read the books twice. I really enjoyed that. And butterbeer. The kids were always drinking it, right? They'd go to that pub through that secret corridor and they'd drink butterbeer. And I'm like, that sounds amazing as a kid. But then as an adult, you'd go into like the Harry Potter theme thing and a wizard would be like, well, I don't know why he's a pirate. Sorry. He's like, welcome to the witch's tale. Let me get you a butterbeer. Be like, yo, no. I'll have a Peroni, please. And I'll be like, no, unfortunately, we just have butterbeer. Is oh shit, then I've got to go to a muggle pub, don't I? Because I need to catch a buzz, and this butterbeer is not cutting it. And don't give me any of that spell shit. I need a beer buzz. I want that like nice, relaxed feeling that sinks in after, the first pint and you're halfway through the second. That feeling. Wizards.
Listen here, Hagrid, you fat oaf. I'm not a fucking wizard! For God's sake, Harry, what is with this language?
Number 3, Decca Records. This next story has gone down in history as one of the greatest mistakes ever made by anybody in the music industry ever. I don't know what this is, but I always get the feeling when something big comes up, it's always going to be the Beatles. It's always Beatles. And I like the Beatles, but I don't think the Beatles are like, everyone's like, oh, the Beatles, so good. And they are. The Beatles are an incredible band who made a lot of incredible music. But they're not like... I don't know, I always come back to like my love and recently discovered love of Fleetwood Mac. I'm like, they're not Fleetwood Mac, are they? They're just not. Fleetwood. It's Fleetwood Mac! On the 1st of January 1962, 4 musicians would take a 10-hour drive from Liverpool down to London in order to attend a much-anticipated audition at Decca Records. Oh, okay, it is the Beatles, isn't it? It's always the Beatles. Ordinarily, the drive should have only taken approximately 4 hours, but due to a snowstorm and various other inconvenient weather conditions, the journey was made considerably longer. Nevertheless, they had left plenty of time and arrived more or less on schedule at their audition, which is more than can be said for Mike Smith, the Decca Records representative, who arrived late and hungover after having celebrated the turn of the year slightly too extravagantly. Smith would further annoy the young musicians when he insisted that the equipment they had brought with them was not sufficient quality and demanded that they use amplifiers provided by Decca. Nevertheless, the audition eventually got underway and these young musicians performed a 15-song set, which they believed fully showcased their range and scope of talents. Holy shit, how long is this audition? If I was a music executive and I was auditioning someone, I'd be like, all right, play me a song. I get about 30 seconds in, I'll be like, yeah, no. Like on, who's that dude? From that show where he's British, Simon Cowell. I'd just be like, no, I don't need to hear 15 songs. If we're on song 3 and I don't know, it's like, who's on song 15? Who gets to song 15? It's like, did you just want a free concert? They were then sent away after being informed that Smith would contact them in due course. Later that same day, a local band, Brian Poole and the Tremolos, also auditioned for Decca, and given that there was only one slot available, the fate of this small Liverpudlian band, who would go on to achieve a modicum of success under the name The Beatles, was in the hands of Mike Smith. According to Dick Rowe, another Decca Records representative, quote, I told Mike he'd have to decide between them. It was up to him. The Beatles or Brian Poole and the Tremolos. He said, they're both good, but one's a local group, the other comes from Liverpool. We decided it better to take the local group. We could work with them more easily and stay closer in touch as they came from Dagenham. And so that was it. The Beatles would fade into obscurity, never to be heard from again. Yeah, like that mediocre movie about the Beatles, which... such a strange movie, strangely put together. It was just a strange production. That one where the Beatles don't exist and the guy's like singing the Beatles songs, which none of us, we all live in a yellow summer. I don't know what the man. Who cares? Let's move on. Sorry, that was just wishful thinking. I feel much the same way about the Beatles as Simon does about Pink Floyd. No, you don't. Don't tell me you do, because the Beatles are good. Beatles are good. Pink Floyd is shot. Just another brick in. Shut the fuck up, you clowns.
If you know me, you'll know how every time I see one of these anywhere, I have a meltdown.
While many people will loudly argue they revolutionized music, music was at that point undergoing a period of reform, and they did not bring anything to the table that somebody else would not have done over the next few years. Well, that's like saying, that's a bit of a silly argument, because that's like saying, oh yeah, the guy who invented anything didn't bring anything to the table because it would eventually be invented. It's like, yeah, but he invented it, didn't he? I really do believe that the greatest talent ever showcased by a member of the Beatles was Ringo Starr's narration for Thomas the Tank Engine. Okay. Having spent 3 years getting drunk and high at one of the south of England's most prestigious music colleges, this is an opinion that has certainly caused some controversy. Wait, so Dave went to one of the south of England's most prestigious music colleges. So I thought music snobs liked the Beatles. I know they like Pink Floyd. Jesus. And I'm not saying you're a music snob, but you've got like 3 years of prestigious music education. So... When looking back in the edition at a later date, Paul McCartney had this to say: listening to the tapes, I can understand why we failed the Decca audition. We weren't that good, though there were some quite interesting and original things. However, John Lennon, alleged narcissist, egoist, and general arsehole, disagreed. We don't have to say alleged, he's dead. What are you going to do, John, you prick? Saying, I wouldn't have turned us down on that. I think it sounded okay. I think Decca expected us all to be polished. We were just doing a demo. They should have seen our potential. Despite this minor setback, the group went on to sign with Parlophone Records, a subsidiary of EMI, and became quite successful. Current estimates put the number of records sold by the Beatles somewhere around 600 million. Brian Poole, isn't that like 600 times platinum? Brian Poole and the Tremelones were by no means a failed investment, but in terms of popularity and more importantly record sales, they didn't come close. Number 2, Joe Green. The former roommate of Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, Green had previously worked with the future billionaire on another project long before Facebook came into existence. This project, known as Face Mash, allowed Harvard students to rate their female peers according to their levels of attractiveness. I remember this from The Social Network, which made it look like he did it like the night before, so I guess he didn't. But like, that is some savage shit, Mark. And you're not exactly the pinnacle of male, like, you're not Apophis? Not Apophis. Adonis. You're not an Adonis yourself, Mark. Unsurprisingly, this project was met with a not inconsiderable amount of disapproval from university management, and it has been reported that both Zuckerberg and Green were threatened with expulsion. Bearing this in mind, when Zuckerberg approached Green and asked him if he might be interested in getting involved with his next project, Green was slightly reluctant. Yeah, I don't blame Green for this one. You mean partner up with Mark, the guy who almost got expelled doing a face mash with? This reluctance only increased when Green's dad, a UCLA professor, discouraged him from engaging in any other business adventures with Zuckerberg. The job that he had been offered, running the business side of Facebook, would have resulted in receiving between 3 and 6% of the company. Yeah, but didn't the guy who ended up doing that, Savarin, also wasn't that the whole point of the social, although I'm sure he made ton of money anyway. Given that Facebook is currently worth $529 billion and 3% of that is $15.886 billion, I imagine he experiences a twinge in his wallet every time he logs in to check his friend requests. Publicly, at least, he does not appear to be particularly bitter about his misfortune. In an interview with Bloomberg Business Week, he said, "Every once in a while you can have a moment of bitterness, but in general I've been so blessed with what I have been able to do." Let me guess. He was at Harvard with Mark Zuckerberg, and he was Mark Zuckerberg's friend, so he's probably quite bright. He's also at Harvard studying computer science, so I'm going to guess he's probably quite successful in himself. After leaving university, Green would go on to work for the ultimately unsuccessful political campaign of John Kerry, before taking on a less financially rewarding post at Facebook, fronting the website and Facebook application Causes, which according to an article on Fox News, so take it with a pinch of salt, is a for-profit business that lets friends suggest charities, social causes, and political candidates for their followers. As well as this work with Facebook, he has also been responsible for a number of other reasonably successful startups, so he has not been destitute due to his mistake. I kind of wish that he was a bit... this is successful, that he's a successful dude. I just wish he'd started something like, I don't know, Lyft. That would have been cool. Number 1, the Mars Chocolate Company. Any child of the 80s or 90s is likely to have either been entertained or terrified by the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial. For those of you who have not seen it, who the f*** hasn't seen? Even I've seen E.T. Well, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I don't remember anything about it other than it's about an alien who wants to go home on a bicycle flying over the moon or some shit like that. The movie tells the story of an alien, E.T., who is left behind when his people visit Earth in order to collect plant samples. The alien eventually meets a small boy whom he develops a strong bond with, that when the extraterrestrial starts to become ill, the young boy is also somehow affected. The basic story is that of a race against time and government agents to have E.T. safely collected by members of his own people. At this point, you might be thinking, Dave, what the f*** has all of this got to do with Mars Chocolate Company or missed opportunities? They missed a product placement thing. I vaguely know this? Well, the answer to that question is fairly straightforward. During one part of the movie, the small child, Elliot, is attempting to coax the alien out of hiding with the use of the popular and well-known American treat Reese's Pieces. However, when the director of this movie, Steven Spielberg, was planning the scene, he originally contacted the Mars company and asked them if they might be interested in getting involved in a little bit of product placement. For the fee of $1 million, Spielberg offered to use M&Ms in the movie. Mars, assuming that this deal would not work out financially for them in the long run, declined the opportunity. Whoops-a-doodle. Although marketing and Mars undoubtedly dropped the ball that day, their rivals over at Hershey's were not so foolish. They quickly accepted the offer, and as a direct result of their product appearing in the movie, their profits rose by 65%. That's insanity. Product placement works. God damn. I should just be like snacking on M&Ms during these things. I mean, recording videos and just getting paid. Not only that, as the movie's still incredibly popular to this day, Hershey's are still reaping the benefits of that one-time payout, whereas the people over at Mars will be remembered alongside such companies as Western Union, who originally said of the telephone, "Why would any person want to use this ungainly and impractical device when he can send a messenger to the telegraph office and have a clear written message sent to any large city in the US?" Oh no. Or the government of the United Kingdom, who, when discussing the merits of the recently invented light bulb, described it as okay for our transatlantic friends, but unworthy of the attention of our practical or scientific men. The light bulb, guys, it's literally the thing when we think of inventions, it's what we use to like show us having a good idea, like bing! Well done, UK government. This is, without a doubt, my favourite statement out of all those that I came across while researching this script. Not only does it represent perhaps the greatest oversight of an invention's future popularity, but it is one of the most quintessentially British things that I've ever read. And thank you for watching. Because that's like saying, oh yeah, the guy who invented anything didn't bring anything to the table because it would eventually be invented. It's like, yeah, but he invented it, didn't he?